Leaving Cert students and the youngest 4 classes in primary school will return next Monday, with others staggered later in March and into April. Childcare services will also return in phases, starting on March 8th. The new government roadmap for vaccination sees around 4.5 million doses delivered in the second quarter of this year, with the Taoiseach saying by the end of June, up to 82% of adults will have had their first dose. The restrictions will be reviewed before Easter, and Micheál Martin says a number of areas will be considered.
The government will examine whether it will be safe to begin easing the restrictions on outdoor gatherings, some sporting activities. We will look at the gradual reopening of construction, and we would like to move on the 5k limit on non-essential journeys.
575 new cases of COVID-19 have been reported today, the second lowest daily total this year. 45 additional deaths have also been confirmed. 693 COVID patients are now in hospital with the disease, of which 150 are in ICU. Dr Dennis McCauley, the chairman of the Irish Medical Organisation's GP Committee, says the country is slowly going in the right direction.
The rate of decline is slower, but there still is a decline of between 10 and 15% week on week in the last number of weeks.
And the Commission of Investigation into Mother and Baby Homes says it has retrieved backup tapes containing the audio testimonies of survivors. The Department of Children says an IT expert has found they're accessible and audible. It says the Commission has agreed to hand over the recordings to the Department. Out of the 550 who provided testimony to the Commission, around 80 people have asked for their interviews to be redacted, and the Commission's now considering how that'll be done. The Social Democrat spokesperson for Children, Jennifer Whitmore, is welcoming tonight's announcement.
It's surprising. There's still lots of questions that need to be answered about this. We don't know whether all the tapes have been recovered. We don't know if they're all intact and whole.
And finally, Tiger Woods is having surgery on multiple leg injuries after a car crash in Los Angeles. Police say the golfer had to be cut out of the vehicle, which had rolled over after coming off the road. Woods was the only person inside and no other cars were involved. It's 9:02.
News Talk Weather.
Thanks to the AA. For our most competitive van insurance, go to the aa.ie.
Rain continuing tonight in most areas. It'll be breezy with lowest temperatures of 6 to 9 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Football Show on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power, the Champions League. We love it as much as Neymar loves himself. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then. What about your start to the game?
It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
Second half's just starting in the Champions League this evening. 0-0 between Atletico and Chelsea. 46 minutes on the clock. Meanwhile, for Bayern, it's cruise control. 3-0 up after the first 45 minutes of this tie. Lewandowski opened the scoring and Leroy Sané scored just on the stroke of half-time. So 3-0 up, and that's the away leg as well. Bayern had been in, by their standards, don't overstate things, so form in the build-up to this game, but they're in good shape already. And Atletico Chelsea, Diego Simeone, you suspect, won't be too upset going to London with a 0-0 in his back pocket. So we'll see how that one transpires over the next 45 minutes or so. Dan McDonnell of the Irish Independent with us. Good evening.
Hi, Joe.
I should mention as well, earlier on, Leeds 3-0 winners at home to Southampton. They're really having an amazing season. Bielsa. It will be interesting to see if anyone comes looking for Bielsa. John Giles here made the point. Could you imagine Bielsa with Manchester United's players? And I can't get that out of my head. I think it would be quite something.
I can't see it, Joe. I can't. I think surely Bielsa has had a volatile relationship with certain clubs. He's walked out of places, and he's had short-lived stays in other places. I'm not so sure. I think it's a perfect marriage there. I mean, like every marriage, it clearly has its up and downs. There's clearly the odd flaw, but I mean, he's pretty happy there. You can sense there's a bit of contract chat and all of this, but I can't imagine he's going anywhere else really.
I suspect, like most people, Tiger Woods has come to dominate your evening a little bit.
Yeah, it has. I suppose, it's news, isn't it? I watched that Tiger Woods documentary recently, the two-part. I think we might have spoke about it on the show one night. And the one thing that struck me about it more than anything was I didn't realise there was that much of Tiger Woods, as a baby, in his early days in it. And I just ended up feeling every bit of his life is drama, there's nothing we haven't seen. I vividly recall being in a pub, these things that you used to go to back in a different time, watching the news come through of the 2009 crash, and actually watching it in a place, and it's sort of surreal to be looking at, you know, CNN or American news channels, to be following another episode in Tiger Woods' life. You know, it's hard going. You know,
if you're just tuning in and not too sure what we're referring to, so just after kind of 7:20 territory, Los Angeles County Sheriff's released a statement confirming the rumours which were swirling, as they tend to, on social media, that Tiger Woods had been hospitalised, and this followed a single vehicle rollover crash this morning. So Woods was removed, they said, using the jaws of life, and the car sustained major damage according to the statement. No other people in the car with Woods, no other cars involved in the accident. Then his longtime agent Mark Steinberg emerged and said that Woods is in surgery. We understand he still is in surgery, but he has suffered multiple leg injuries. No more detail on that, just multiple leg injuries. We don't know the nature of the leg injuries, just multiple leg injuries, and presumably that's what the surgery is in relation to. The LA Times, probably more than most, able to get people on the scene, so they've been out speaking to law enforcement sources, and I mean, they spoke to the law enforcement sources on the condition of anonymity, because they're not authorised to speak about it, but they couldn't resist speaking to the LA Times nonetheless. So they said, on the condition of anonymity, that Woods was travelling at a high rate of speed and that he lost control of the vehicle before crossing the centre divider, and his SUV rolled multiple times before coming to a halt. The sources described his condition as moderate to critical. Moderate to critical. I mean, that's a big old spectrum, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the reportage of some of this stuff in America is incredible, really. You know, I mean, even that it was very early, it was a very early confirmation that the person in the car was the golfer, you know, Eldrick Tiger Woods. They just handle these things differently, don't they? You know, I mean, like, I found myself looking at TMZ or these sites, and the information they get, like, you know, they always seem to get the audio recording of, like, emergency services phoning it in or whatever. It's sort of, there really is no privacy with this stuff for them. I know it's ironic, like, people in the media talking about that, like, you seek information and stuff like that, but considering the crash happened, 4, 5, 6 hours ago, the level of detail that lends itself to speculation, no matter what way you look at it. But there is just such massive public interest that nothing is sacred, nothing is off limits, really. And as you say, you know, law enforcement sources are able to give a pretty good rundown. But as I said, they're able to name him in a statement. Like in other places, you know, it wouldn't be official channels that would be naming that. It would obviously be speculation about someone being in an accident, but it wouldn't be as public as it seems to be in America for whatever reason. No.
Certainly the privacy aspect is very different, and obviously the defamation aspect is incredibly different over here.
It is, but it's his whole life. Its whole life is played out publicly.
Yeah,
isn't it, you know?
I can never quite work out. So say, you know, the revelation from official channels, like the LAPD statement was almost the first I saw of it on Twitter, kind of officially after all the rumours. It's hard to know if that's just a more mature way of doing things. Like, the reality is these rumours get out, so let's just deal with them officially, as opposed to hours and hours of rumours swirling. I mean, the logic would generally be, certainly in this side of the world, or my understanding of how newsrooms tend to operate, is that one of the main reasons official channels don't identify and comment is that it's seen as reasonable to try and make sure all family members are aware of something like this happening first. So by my maths, the accident happened 7:12 a.m. plus 8, that's 15:12. So just after 3 o'clock Irish time, and it's officially confirmed 4 hours later. Like, it's very conceivable family members mightn't have got word by then, you know, but who knows?
100%. That is, I think that is 100% a thing. I mean, I can't think of examples off the top of my head, but I suppose you think of examples arising from, you know, stuff you hear about someone being unwell or something untoward happening, whatever, and that's always the guiding principle. Like, who wants to be the person that, I mean, you know, certainly not for me anyway, like to break some kind of story, and then you hear afterwards that, like, you know, it was a family member found out by virtue of your story. I mean, that's just not worth it, really. But I mean, I know what you're saying. Like, obviously, if there's speculation going around and pictures or whatever it might be, I understand why you get ahead of it, you know, in some respects at official level. But Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's something I suppose we're sadly, like everyone's, as I said, there's no privacy. We're going to be watching this. Possibly those that are interested are going to be watching this like on rolling news in a sort of a voyeuristic way. But that's what happens. That's what we do.
It's really terrible. I mean, if this was the end, first of all, you hope it's not critical. I mean, moderate to critical was used there. You hope he's okay. Certainly the sense that Steinberg, his agent, gave was it was about leg injuries, and that's the starting point. So you hope, first of all, he's okay. And then you think, man, what a brutal way. This could be the end of his golfing career, so conceivably. At his age, we last saw him at the Genesis on Sunday night. He was the tournament host. I don't know where you're watching. Yeah, he was being interviewed by Jim Nantz on TV, and he's obviously had back surgery, if people didn't see that before Christmas, and so Nantz was asking him where he is with that, and even that was a murky enough picture. He was saying that he doesn't know if he would be back for the Masters in April. He didn't know if he'd be able to get back and play a warm-up event. He was due another MRI scan to see where he was, and it was all, really up in the air. And that was his, I think, fourth or fifth back surgery. I mean, it's been a mess, really, his back, and he's had spinal fusion and all sorts there. So that's where his head was at on Sunday. So, I mean, to throw in the inevitable complications now that will come with this, I mean, that could really be the end of Tiger Woods' golf career, and a brutal end at that.
Yeah, no, I mean, as I said, you're wary of speculation, so soon after the crash as well, because this is the thing. That's my point about the news cycle. I probably should have made that point there. Of course, these stories get out, but it's just how quickly it happens in America sometimes. How quickly it happens. Yeah. So even with the Kobe Bryant case and stuff like that, just incredibly how quick it can filter out. But yeah, so you are right. I mean, if that is the way. Was it Ben Hogan involved in a big car crash in the golfing past? That it's very sad, certainly. Yeah,
it's terrible. Yeah. Well, hopefully the big picture stuff is okay. I mean, that's the most important thing at this vantage point. And it's 2 hours since the news even began to break, and as we last heard, he's still in surgery. So this is incredibly early to say anything more. So look, we'll keep you updated if you're just tuning in. We wanted to bring that news to you. It's obviously significant, and we will get back to matters football. So still 0-0 between Atletico and Chelsea over in the game between Lazio and Bayern. 2 more goals have gone in. Lazio did get one of them, but Bayern also got one of them. So it's now 4-1 to Bayern away to Lazio this evening. Dan, MTK. We haven't talked about MTK on the football show, but they are expanding. MTK Global, very much operating in the world of boxing, set up by Daniel Kinahan under a different name in 2012. And now they're moving into the world of football. They made the announcement. They have a CEO, and Miguel Delaney was on saying it's his understanding that they're certainly going to be looking at the UK market. They mentioned that Danny Vincent, 36 years old, is going to front MTK Football, a strong passion for football. And I said to Miguel Delaney that post-Panorama investigation, this will not go unchecked over in the UK press. And he was very much in agreement in saying that's already started. So very significant news. I mean, I guess it's the more you think about it, it's not shocking. There is money to be made.
No, it's definitely not shocking. And I mean, I suppose, again, you don't want to sound like one of those, I suppose, the sycophantic boxing journalists or some of the stuff they've said, but it is a point to make that it's not unusual for bad money to be floating around football as it is in other codes, but that doesn't sort of lead to just taking a sort of a shrug your shoulders and go, well, hey, that's the game, that's what happens. But I suppose, I mean, you do look at sort of regimes that are behind certain clubs and stuff, and it would it would obviously, if you looked into everything in great detail, you'd be worried about a lot of things, and you'd be asking questions, and certainly people just get on with it, where World Cups go and bidding goes and all this stuff. But obviously, this is something that's very close to us in particular here, because naturally we live very close to and are very conscious of the impact that certain actions and certain people's broader network has possibly had on communities. So we have to be very you always have to be very on your guard and sort of worried about this stuff. And it's interesting, as you say, Miguel alluding to the information in the situation that they may more so be looking at the UK market, without pretending to follow this story unbelievably closely and to second guess what the mood is of everyone in the world, and everyone in Ireland and what it would be. I do think it would be surprising if you suddenly found, Irish footballers going down the road of signing up for them in the same way even that I know that a number of boxers have, particularly some ones from north of the border. But I think in some respects, you could argue that they got themselves into something, but we're in a situation now where any footballer, it's a news story if it comes out that a footballer has signed. Like if a footballer in theory put out a post tomorrow, an Irish footballer put out a post and said, happy to have signed up with MTK Football, it's a massive story. It's like probably a front page story as much as anything. So I'd be very surprised if it really, if they went down that road publicly. But obviously in the UK, there seems to be, as much as you say about the media scrutiny, I'm not certain, like there's also people who don't seem that bothered by it really. And listen, there's money in football. There's a lot of young men in football seeking direction, and someone putting an arm around their shoulder and looking after them and telling them what they want to hear, they're going to be interested by that. So yeah, it's we will see what happens. As I said, it's weird to be talking around and to be talking mysteriously, but probably wouldn't be the first time, but obviously this is it's MTK are very much out in the open, the discussion of their activities and is it appropriate. If you went through who has represented every footballer in recent times, you'd probably find links of some description, but this one is out there now. So I don't know what your sense of it is. You've spoken to a lot of guests about it, various journalists and stuff in the UK. I'd be sort of surprised. But if MTK Football suddenly started signing up loads of clients and people shrugged their shoulders, but then you hear the statement on TalkSport and some stuff, and you wonder maybe are we in a media bubble here, and a lot of other people will just get on with it and think it's no big deal.
No, I'd be quite surprised if it wasn't a big story, especially on the back of the Panorama documentary. That made such a splash over there that this won't be a case of MTK Global almost sneaking up on people and suddenly you realise, a bit like as seems to have happened in boxing, you suddenly realise the extent of their stable, and you realise Daniel Kinahan is brokering, the biggest fight in the world. It seemed to almost catch people a little bit unawares, and there's been almost a scramble since to catch up with this story in a way and digest the story and, well, what's going to be done about the situation. It suddenly I think it caught, certainly outside of Ireland, caught people by surprise. That won't really happen now post-Panorama. So I suspect this will be a big story. And, Barry McGuigan made the point that to do what they did in boxing took millions. So they were very serious about getting into the boxing market and doing well in the boxing market. I suspect they'll be very serious about getting into the football market, and they'll come fully loaded and they'll offer good terms, which is what they did in boxing. I presume the model is the same. They'll offer very attractive terms, and I think they'll start to pick up footballers, and then it will be very interesting. Now, the big question is that in football, as opposed to in boxing, there are supposed to be regulations and equivalents of fit and proper person tests and all of this stuff. There are hands-on regulatory bodies. So in boxing, one of the great issues seems to be a lack of regulation on this front, whereas in football that is not the case. So if links can be established which are deemed not good, then will football authorities take action? I think it's going to be absolutely fascinating to see.
Although, I don't know. You say that, but in some respects, the football stuff in recent years has become a small bit more sort of Wild Westy to a degree, in the sense that there used to be the agent exams and a more strict thing, but now really, I haven't sort of prepared this, but in terms of the definition of sort of someone that's advising or an intermediary and stuff like that.
But sorry to interrupt. Forget about the exams and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Front page news, public pressure.
Oh, the
big football journalists asking the big questions, what's going on here? Like, in boxing, there's no, who do you go to? What do you do? So that's not the case in football. There'll be high-powered people now coming under pressure. There'll be broadcasters coming under pressure potentially. Who knows?
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Or clubs coming under pressure. Clubs being asked, are you going to deal with this agency given the concerns people have? Clubs will be asked that. Managers will be asked that. So I think there'll be more in this than in boxing, where like often the promoters and the fighters, you don't hear from them month to month, let alone a couple of times a week, as is the case in football.
Yeah, and I suppose you've got to assume, and again, this is an assumption is dangerous, because you'd assume they're going to want to go to the top of the game, but I suppose it's a question of like, if you have a very established footballer doing very well, like boxing, as we know, there's big money, in it at the top end, but obviously it seems that a lot of the people they represent are ones who say, well, they had nothing, before MTK came along and they did this for them and they did that for them. Whereas generally, someone who's playing at a good level of football in the UK is already doing pretty well for themselves. And so you wonder, is it going to be going after sort of younger players at an early age and build that loyalty, as opposed to like making a splash in the market? Because it's very hard. Like, it's a different scene. It's about, getting on the cards and getting on the fights, and you need to be with someone. Like, I'm not saying the football world is perfect. Obviously, you'll see agencies having relationships with clubs and managers, and the movement of it can be very murky at times. But I guess like going in at the top involves going in and getting, high profile clients. Like, what can you do for them? I suppose there's endorsements and there's various doors you can open, but you would think it's more so the sort of the vulnerable younger player needing direction, but who's got a lot of talent. That's where you go, and that's where you get into it. Yeah. So it's almost at the underage football scene, and parents and people and advisors who need a bit of guidance. You would think that's where you would go to start, but again, there's a massive level of assumption involved with that. And I could be talking rubbish. They could have tentacles there already. Who knows?
We'll wait and see how it all plays out. It will be interesting, to say the least. Football from the weekend. Haven't talked to you much. I know you watched Seamus Coleman's tour de force at Anfield time.
I did, yeah. I mean, it's like we're not necessarily sort of bowled over with sort of good Irish Premier League stories at the moment, and sort of Seamus Coleman has probably been probably one of the stories of the season. I even did a piece for the paper on Saturday before that game, and to be honest, like, it was hard to do the piece with certainty that he would play, because albeit there was an injury to Yerry Mina during the week, he'd come on early against Man City, but like Ancelotti seems to be at the stage where he's picking and choosing the games where he uses Coleman. It's sort of been one game on, one game off since Christmas, but he had a very specific plan in mind for him for this game. It was picked out by Jamie Carragher the other day on Monday Night Football, and explained how Seamus Coleman did a sort of a job on Andy Robertson, and it was interesting, that he really had a role to play in the game, which sort of showed how he still has a versatility to go with his experience to execute a task.
Yeah, it was really impressive, and he said as much in the post-match interview. He admitted, my job was just to look after Andy Robertson, and he flitted between right wing back and right back, right wing back and right winger at times, and then back four at times. I mean, it was very versatile from Everton's perspective, and it worked really well. And I guess Coleman has to make a lot of the decisions which dictate the shape of the team, and Ancelotti trusted him to do that. So it was a real marker of the trust Ancelotti has in him, the experience that Coleman has. And it would seem, Dan, that come March time, it'll be Seamus Coleman at right back for Ireland, given forms of Doherty and Coleman. I mean, that seems like almost no-brainer territory. Or will Stephen Kenny look for something else, do you think?
No, I would have thought, I think, with everything that's happened, with it being an away game, a tough away game, albeit, no fans, so you can't necessarily talk about the hostile atmosphere, but, an away game, John Egan's out, Shane Duffy's form is struggling, you need that bit of, defensively, forget leadership and all those words, like, you just need maybe that sort of solid presence, someone who's in good form. Kieran Clark has been doing okay at Newcastle. He might come back into the scene. And, like, you probably just need Coleman there. But I suppose, like, maybe, like, how he was used the other day was interesting, because, as you mentioned, like, it was he was sort of, at times he was a right wing back, at times it looked like he was a right winger. Like sometimes when you're trying to explain football, you will talk about, well, what was the system that was played, and it's always a 4-5-1 or 3-5-2 or whatever, and you can be very we can be very direct about it. When of course, like, then you talk to people who are involved in the game, and it's obviously a bit different. Like they'll talk about how you might have a particular formation in possession and a particular formation out of possession, and how you can switch from one to the other depending on some full-backs are pressed up higher than the other. And it was interesting how Everton used Coleman in this game in the context of, you would say, the debate around the Coleman and Doherty situation, because we've always,
What a goal. Sorry to interrupt. Hold that thought. Giroud.
Oh, I just see it here.
With an overhead. It's been ruled out.
Offside.
Olivier Giroud. I presume it was Giroud. Maybe I'm doing somebody else a disservice. 68 minutes gone here. It's Atletico 0, Chelsea 0. And in effect, from distance, out of the corner of my eye, when Dan McDonnell was 99% absorbing me with his football intellect, as per Dan. But ball fell to, I think, again, Giroud on the penalty spot. And he leapt up. Yeah, it was Giroud. And overhead kick. It didn't rifle into the net. It took a bounce before hitting the net, but it was so well placed in the corner. Keeper couldn't get to it. And he turned away celebrating, only to see flag up. Referee is talking on his microphone now. I wonder, will they?
It just depends who had the last contact before the ball came to Giroud. Yeah. If it was an Atletico player or a Chelsea player. So
they haven't restarted play yet. Referee is not coming over to a screen or anything. He's waiting for word from somebody. All the players are staring at the referee, and we are waiting. So that's interesting.
This is what we do. Well, he's in an offside position, but if it was a bad clearance that hooked the ball into his path, as opposed to a teammate, then maybe he has half a chance.
Still talking. He's still talking.
A referee will sort of scream at us now to give a more precise definition of that. But I would assume that's what they're looking at. That if the ball reached him from Atletico Madrid player rather than his own player, then he's got a chance of being onside. But they're not showing us replays at the moment, so we can't really we can't call it in any more detail than they are.
Why are they not showing replays?
It's quite frustrating. We're in this holding pattern. I feel like, should I go back into the Seamus Coleman point, or we just wait till it's clarified?
Dan, relax. A bit of silence on the radio is nothing to be afraid of.
Okay.
We'll chill. So he's talking. They're saying VAR goal check. He's still talking. I don't know why the TV aren't showing us a replay. That's the annoying thing. Just show us a replay.
I'm just embracing the silence here, Joe. No, like you're right. It is, but like this is what we do now. Like this is now a modern part of football dialogue, that we just wait for a decision. But like the ref is walking around with his listening to his earpiece very closely. It's like you see someone on the phone on walking around like with their earplugs in, and they're a bit distracted. The players are trying to get his attention, and Simeone is pacing the line as well, nervously.
It's like dad at work and the kids want his attention. Now I'm on the phone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm on the phone to the office here. Honestly, I'm not just listening to a podcast.
I just find it strange that BT aren't taking an executive decision. Oh, has he given the go? He has. It's a goal.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Giroud robbed of this glorious moment. Chelsea are trying to muster up a celebration now, but it's missing something.
It's sort of mad they're not giving us a replay to clarify if that's what it is. They are trying to get a celebration going, but the only logical way is that either he was not offside initially and we need to see something in the replay, or it was an Atletico Madrid player that sent it to him.
I think we need to talk about just how woeful now the Chelsea celebration has been. That is so terrible. Finally, a replay. Ball is crossed in. It's all about who gets a last touch, to be fair. So what happens here, ball is crossed in, it bounces, and then a Chelsea player and an Atletico player go for it at the same time. Think Noel Hunt, Robbie Keane territory. And they're both, one of them, we're having to presume now it was the Atletico player.
The director is just not having this at all, is he?
No. Yeah. One of them hoiks the ball up in the air, and so it had to be the Atletico player, as you rightly suggested might be the case, and Giroud slams in the overhead. Is this a Spanish director? Is this like Spanish director in a huff?
Maybe if I don't show this, it won't have actually happened.
Yeah.
This is actually this is what happened. No, we eventually it does. The last replay would suggest that's what happened. It's the most sensible explanation.
Surely BT have control over their own pictures in a night like this. But
well, the thing is, I actually watch an RT, and it's exactly the same. So
UEFA tends to be,
the UEFA tends to be a sort of a centralised feed for the games, standardized camera positions, rather than, broadcasters doing their own thing. That's not necessarily I just know from the Dundalk being in the Europa League and stuff like that, I don't think, teams bring their own, stations, send their own camera crew or whatever. So, yeah.
Well, it wasn't good. I mean, whoever that director was made a mess of that 5 minutes.
Well, particularly for us, just as we we embraced the silence. But anyway, it was compelling. The goal was scored in the end.
I don't think we can call it compelling about ourselves.
No, and it was also ironic. But yeah. Well, we'll go back to the Seamus Coleman point.
I feel you were on the verge of saying that Coleman demonstrated a certain versatility. He shows he can play right wing back, just like Doherty.
Well, it's just a question. But the only point is, you're not playing Andy Robertson every week. But it does show that, like, the idea of Coleman and Doherty interchanging, like the one time it was tried, it was against Gibraltar, a game where Ireland were primarily going to be on the attack, you would have thought, most of the time. But if you're playing against a team, an outstanding fullback, like a lot of decent teams tend to have, or not even outstanding, but overlapping fullbacks, it's a point to raise. Although, again, would it be a different type of player that you want? Like Doherty, you would think, also likes to cover a lot of ground. But it was interesting. Holgate was doing a job on Mane and Coleman and Robertson. I'm sure, listen, knowing the way that the Stephen Kenny and his people would watch games, I'm sure they'd have looked at it. And there was certainly chat in November that they were going to look at trying Coleman and Doherty together.
Okay.
Now, it just so happened that circumstances prevented them from doing so. But I wouldn't be shocked if it happened again.
Interesting.
At some stage, yeah.
Meanwhile, and just a quick word on this, but I don't know if you have anything jumping out to you. Everton, before that Man City, before that Brighton, before that Burnley, 4 losses in a row, before that draws with Manchester United and West Brom. I mean, Liverpool's fall off here is actually extraordinary. I think Carragher was making the point last night on Monday Night Football that I get the Van Dijk thing and I get the injuries and I get everything else, but actually this has now gone past the point of being acceptable. Like, they're 17th in the form guide for over the last while. He was saying, look, I played in far inferior teams to this and we just managed to get wins. You have to start winning games. Like, this is just ridiculous now. This isn't acceptable.
No, I don't think, like, if they lose the league by 5 points, I think to raise Van Dijk is a fair point, and there's no doubt it had a massive unsettling effect. But again, like, I'm trying to think, Manchester United lost Roy Keane famously, and that sort of was at 97, 98, the Alpha and Gahalan, the knee injury. But I don't recall them, like, completely falling off a cliff in the sense that they looked like they weren't going to finish in the top 4, and that's clearly like a reason why things have gone bad for Liverpool. But the extent to which they've fallen off it, I mean, even if you're being really kind and saying that is the reason, well, then there's still a mental frailty question mark with that they haven't responded in the resilient way you would manner to it, the resilient manner you would expect to it, So that raises question marks, and it just can't, like, and it's to me it makes more sense that they're just tired generally, and the exertions of recent years have caught up with them. And that's always the challenge from going from being a good team, like a good league winner, to being like a really great one, is to do it, to retain it, to consistently win it. And sometimes teams, like, their flame burns brightly for a period of time and then it goes out. And I didn't think that would happen with Liverpool at all, I have to say. But the volume of defeats would make you think
something serious.
I don't know. Yeah, there's a bit more of a question mark, and it's a weird season. It's a weird time. A lot of leagues around Europe are getting strange results. There's mitigating factors, but I just think you're denying the truth, like, to sort of an over-the-top extent if you say that the only reason is injuries. That's not a dig at Nathan Murphy, by the way. I know he was defending it the other day, but I think there's more to it than that. You'd have to be worried.
Okay. 1-0 Chelsea against Atletico, and in the other game this evening, still 4-1 Bayern away to Lazio. James Richardson is going to join us next.
We've had some great days and great nights and good memories. I hope that the people of Ireland have got... I know that they've got the memories. I know they cherish them, and I know that they've enjoyed the days that when they've done something that they've never done before. They go to a World Cup as part of it a couple of times. They've enjoyed that, and the European Championship.
Thank you for the days, those endless days, those sacred days you gave me.
president phoned me and said, would you like, the job is yours if you'd like it. And I said, I would like it. End of story.
I won't forget a single day, believe me.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Only the cream of the crop pick up Champions League medals. Jonathan Greening's got one. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
Screen Time.
This week on Screen Time, I talked to Lord Grantham himself, Hugh Bonneville, about his new movie To Olivia, where he plays Roald Dahl, and also about volunteering in a UK vaccine centre. Eve Hewson and Tom Bateman talked to me about your next great TV binge, Behind Her Eyes. Mark Ryle is here with all the week's new releases, plus the inimitable Davy Fitzgerald talks to me about his favourite movie.
Screen Time with John Farty.
Listen and subscribe to the podcast now on newstalk.com or on the Newstalk app.
At Bank of Ireland, you don't have to talk face-to-face. Our mortgage team are happy to talk FaceTime to FaceTime and give you all the info you need. From how to get started to how much to save. FaceTime our mortgage team to talk about a personalised mortgage that's right for you. When you're ready to make a move, we're ready to make it with you. Bank of Ireland. Begin. Lending criteria, terms and conditions apply. Over 18s only. Mortgage approval subject to assessment of suitability and affordability. Bank of Ireland Mortgage Bank trading as Bank of Ireland Mortgages is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
At Experts Electrical Stores nationwide, we love Miele's Triflex cordless vacuum so much, we're offering a 90-day money-back guarantee. Handheld for mini messes, reach mode for difficult spaces, and upright comfort for big spreads. Try it and you'll love it. Guaranteed. Get your Miele Triflex cordless vacuum now at Experts Electrical Stores and expert.ie.
Free live streaming on all UK and Irish horse races now available on the Boyle Sports app. Fancy that informed striker? Markets now available on shots, left foot, right foot and headed goals. Track your bets and cash out or stick to your guns with cash out now available on 12 different sports. Boyle Sports. This is betting. Gamble responsibly. See gamblingcare.ie 18+.
Get the power to do more with Sky Broadband. And our best ever Wi-Fi from just €35 a month for 12 months. With lightning fast speeds, you can stream the hottest new shows without your screen freezing. And gamers can leave buffering broadband for dust. Switch to Sky Broadband from just €35 a month for 12 months. Search Sky 35 today. Availability subject to location from 500 megabit speeds. Setup fees, minimum term and further terms apply. See sky.ie/speeds.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Only the cream of the crop pick up Champions League medals. Jonathan Greening's got one. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
Now you're welcome back. So Callum Hudson-Odoi has been called ashore after 80 minutes. Far more acceptable tonight than at the weekend. Reece James just come on. Chelsea still 1-0 up against Atletico. The general sense on Twitter is people wondering why the hell Atletico have not tried to score a goal this evening. It's been that kind of an Atletico performance seems to be the feeling. Meanwhile, Bayern Munich still 4-1 up away to Lazio. The football coverage on Off the Ball is with thanks to Paddy Power. For information on responsible gambling, visit gamblingcare.ie. Dan McDonnell is still with me, as is James Richardson, host of the official Premier League Fantasy Football podcast. James Richardson, hello.
Hello there. How are you doing?
Very well. So this story is what, the high point for the official Premier League Fantasy Football podcast. Aston Villa, team news leaking out, James Grealish injured. And what's happened here? It seems that there's some way for a bot or software of some kind to keep tabs on players who are also working for football clubs, and when the Aston Villa brigade all dump Grealish out of their team, ahoy.
Yes, so there's an account called FPL Insider. I don't know to what extent it's an algorithm, to what extent it's a bot, to what extent it's a spotty fellow with a laptop in an attic, but they monitor the teams which are published when the deadline for team selection passes. Everyone's teams are published. So if you know what a team is called, you can find out who's in it. And they've obviously gone to the bother of finding out who these Aston Villa squad members, but also kind of members of the backroom staff, who their teams are, and various other teams as well. Andy Robertson's one who in the past has caused a certain amount of furore by transferring Mane out of his team ahead of the deadline, ahead of a match, and then we all knew that Mane was probably not going to be playing. So this thing does exist, and people do follow accounts to try and get that kind of marginal gain, to get a little bit of an insight into which players are going to be playing at the weekend and which ones won't. And supposedly, because these 5 Villa staff members had transferred Grealish out, that was how Leicester knew, because the deadline was, 6:30 on... the deadline for Fantasy Premier League was 6:30 on Friday evening. That was how they knew, a kind of a day and a half or so before their clash with Villa. Leicester were able to prepare for a Grealish-less set of villains. I mean, to be honest, as has been pointed out, Grealish hadn't been spotted in training for the previous few days. So there were plenty of other ways this news had got out. But I think for FPL managers, this is manna from heaven, because we're desperate for credibility. We're desperate to feel like we have a role to play in the game, an impact on the Premier League. The Premier League, which we know to be really just a device for furnishing points for our league, has now become aware of our existence.
Well, indeed. I mean, this is the big time. I mean, this is it. You're the centre of your eye of the storm here. This is incredible. I mean, what next? What's going to happen next?
I don't know. Supposedly, Dean Smith, in a fit of pique, has banned those 5 Villa staff members from playing, or indeed any staff members from playing Fantasy Premier League for the rest of this season. Rumours that he was bottom of the Villa Mini League, I think, are to be discounted. That's not what this is about. But I imagine that this could be something, if this goes any further, because clearly there is a potential advantage for someone like Leicester in knowing that a big player is out and being able to prepare themselves for that. And managers never want leaks. We've seen that with, obviously Leeds in the past and that derby business. So I can see how clubs might start to take this seriously and might start to expect their players not to have fantasy teams, whether that'll actually be what happens. I mean, they'll probably just do it undercover. I mean, it's another form, I guess, of betting on which players will or won't do well. But so many players play it. Not many managers do, I don't think, probably because they're busy actually managing. But Pep Guardiola, I think, was asked about this, asked about the whole business. He seemed blissfully unaware of what Fantasy Premier League was. But he'll learn, I'm sure.
I can't believe so many players play this. Sorry, Dan.
Yeah, I was just going to say, was there do we have, it's almost like a secret club we're trying to find it. Do you know how many players have teams, Because I see one of the reports is suggesting that now they might have to stop players who want to play from including players from their own club on their team, which obviously involves do you have to add in an extra line? Are you a Premier League player? Tick box yes or no while you're signing up at the start. But is it widely known?
Yeah, how many there are? My guess would be that around half of the Premier League play.
Stop.
Yeah, really, because I do a show, and a quick plug on fantasy.premierleague.com, where you might be able to see it on Irish television, I'm not sure. But we do a show every Thursday night called the FPL show, with myself and Jules Breach. And we, in the course of that, are talking about which players you need to get for the weekend. And generally having a particularly entertaining time. We always do a little interview segment with a player from a Premier League club. And sometimes they don't really understand what FPL is, but loads of times they are very switched on about what metrics they need to be picking players by, who they should be recommending. And they'll often talk about who's top in that team, their own team's mini league of FPL. So, I mean, Patrick Bamford's another one. The guy will not go through a post-game interview without mentioning what he's done with his team, whether he's dropped himself, whether he gave himself the captain's armband, which, as we all know, will earn you double points.
Well, of course. Indeed.
So I think that I would say at least 50%. There are 8 million people playing this game.
Whoa.
Yeah. Extraordinary, no?
Wow. Is it more popular than I played it in college, and I've stopped. I just don't anymore for whatever reason. I'm rethinking this. I can't believe you think up to 50% of Premier League players who play in the Premier League are also playing Fantasy Manager. I mean, this is just blowing my mind.
Okay, so that's the difference. Fantasy Manager, I can't imagine them doing. It's incredibly
fantasy football.
Yeah, no, but absolutely. But I think that's a key difference, because FPL is dead simple. If you're a football player and you actually play against the people that you're picking from, you've got a very good idea of who's in form, who's not in form, who's likely to do well against the given opponent. And also, and this is crucial, you've got bags of free time. I mean, once you've kind of got your tattoo for that week, what are you going to do as a Premier League player? Yeah. I think FPL is a great pastime for them, and it's right up. Yeah, it's in their wheelhouse. It's another way they can compete with the rest of the squad. I think it ticks all the boxes.
I guess so. I guess the high of having a good week there as opposed to the high of having a good week on the pitch. But then again, I did see Bamford. I mean, he was beaming, positively beaming after one game when he knew that the points haul was big. So is 8 million players, is that as big as it's ever been? Is this only going one way? This, am I calling this a hobby, a pastime, a pursuit?
So, yeah, 8 million is the record, and that's only recently been reached. So it's curious that the numbers have been going up even during the season. I would have expected that if you didn't start of the season, why would you join in? But I guess people join it just to see how well they can do on a week-to-week basis. Is it going to keep on growing? I mean, I think so, although apparently we're going to lose a bunch of Premier League footballers as managers. But it's free and it's great fun, and it makes even games like Burnley against West Brom watchable if you've got skin in that game.
True. Dan, you're still at it, aren't you?
No, I just gave it up a couple of seasons ago. So I did play it for years, but I'd imagine during lockdown, you see, it's become like it's like good, clean fun for Premier League footballers. I mean, what else have they left to do? You know, I mean, if they tell their mate what the team is going to be, they get in trouble. You know, if you have spot betting stuff going on in lower leagues and gambling and all sorts of stuff, that is the dark side of the game. You know. I mean, give them their fantasy league team at least, you know, without someone hacking it or not hacking it. I assume it's available, but this bot has managed to access it very quickly and put it out there. But
James, I must listen, because in my day it was fairly agricultural. I think. I mean, I'm only going back maybe 10 years or so, and there were just certain truths. Like you picked Morton Gamps Pedersen because that was just a guaranteed value for money buy, and you know, you Frank Lampard for a couple of seasons. It was just silly not to have him in the team. I presume here we are in 2021. People have a lot more data to play around with. So has this become fairly sophisticated?
Yes, there are people. Well, I suppose I'm one of them actually. I mean, there is a kind of entire kind of professional subclass existing off FPL now. There are people who have quit their jobs to become FPL scouts or run FPL blogs, subscription services whereby they offer tips and metrics for people who want to get the slightest advantage in their mini leagues or whatever. I mean, you can go very, very deep on this. Most FPL podcasts, not ours, I would stress, but most of them I think run to about 1.5 hours per episode, just because they've got so much stuff to tell you every week. But if you don't want to go that deep, it's dead simple. You know, you just pick your players and then off they go. And quite often, if you just leave them there and stop interfering, they'll do far better than if you continue to meddle. So I think it is a game that is very much accessible at whatever level you want to play it. But yeah, if you want to get sophisticated, my goodness, there's just so much raw data that you can really dive into and you know, rub all over.
So who are the great undervalued players that really should be in people's teams? Yeah, who are like the hidden gems that you've come across over the last while?
Well, I think, I mean, that's the thing. It's increasingly difficult, especially at this time of the year when we've all had a good look at who the players are with 2/3 of the season gone. I mean, the last kind of surprise was Gundogan, who came in and kind of took over the goal scoring at Man City, and it is ridiculously cheap for the points that he was providing. Probably Dallas. If people haven't heard about Dallas at Leeds, he's the guy. He's the real, I think, the guy who's way outperforming his expected goals, and I mean, he's a defender for a start, but also his price tag. But I think most people are across Dallas by now. I'm not really the guy to ask about this because I'm famously tactically dim about football. But luckily, there is a place that you can find out this kind of stuff with real, genuine experts, and that is the official FPL podcast.
Oh, what a plug. Masterfully done. Before you go, what are you making of this Serie A season? Milan derby, obviously, at the weekend. Lukaku reigned supreme.
Yes, well, he was magnificent. I'm slightly disappointed of Inter run away with it. If you were ever to pick a team that could blow it from here to the end of the season, Inter would be probably the one, because you know the very club song celebrates the fact that they are able to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory at any given moment. But it does look like they have a significant advantage, not only their lead, but the fact that they don't have any European commitments, so they're just plain sailing from here to the end of the season. But it has been really great to see things mixed up. It's been a bit of a slap in the face seeing how Lazio and Juve have got on in this last 16 of the Champions League so far. But we're hoping for better from Atalanta tomorrow against Real Madrid, because that would be really special if the Bergamaschi could say knock Zidane's crew out of Europe.
And what's the verdict on Pirlo and Juve? What's going wrong?
Well, I mean, again, I refer you to my previous answer about my tactical understanding, which is, you know, close to zero. But from what I understand from reading what clever people say, it goes to the fact that he is a manager who likes to play a certain kind of football, and he doesn't have the players to do it. He lacks, ironically, a Pirlo figure, and he's tried various different combinations of players, the sum of which parts might add up to that kind of deep-lying orchestrator, furnisher of attacking play. But as yet, he hasn't found one that will work consistently. One will work for a game or two. Weston McKennie looked like he might be the solution. That hasn't been working out. So I think that this is a team that has been built around Cristiano Ronaldo's goals for so long that it's masked a lot of the kind of other absences, the other flaws in it. Cristiano Ronaldo is now looking like age is catching up with him. He hasn't scored, I think, in 6 games or something now. And I think that's kind of laid bare a lot of the other problems in the team. And, you know, there are other issues with injuries. The fact that Dybala's gone missing for this period with injuries has not helped Pirlo. But, you know, it's a lot to expect him in what is literally his first ever job in management at any level at all, to suddenly be able to kind of sort out this puzzle. I think he will be given time by Juve. There's no way that you bring him in if you're not going to give him time. But fingers crossed, because it would be a real shame if Pirlo didn't turn out to be a genius manager, you know? Yeah.
And does the traditionalist in you look at Inter, Milan, Juve, Roma as a top 4 and think, yeah, look, I like that. There's a certain old school glamour here, which I'm just fine with?
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, particularly the Milanese. Yeah. We need to have the 2 Milanese sides in the Champions League, and hopefully we'll get 5 Italian sides in there. That would be good. But that it would be nice to get the proper sides up there, and a little bit of a renaissance there, particularly, as I say, in the city of Milan.
Very good. Well, listen, thanks so much for coming on and explaining all that to us, James Richardson. Always great having the show. Thanks a million.
Not at all. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Thank you. Latest again, we're into injury time in Bucharest. Atletico 0, Chelsea 1. 6 minutes of added time there. There are 4.5 minutes of those 6 played, and Bayern still 4-1 up. Way to Lazio again into added time.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power, the Champions League. We love it as much as Neymar loves himself. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
This Irish success story is brought to you by Guaranteed Irish.
Home to Sean O'Casey and W.B. Yates, Mountjoy Square is also home to DID Electrical's first store since 1968. Now employing 350 people in 23 stores nationwide and online at did.ie. DID continues to deliver, install and demonstrate the latest appliances and technology. Guaranteed Irish welcomes companies that are altogether better choices for our communities. So look out for it. Guaranteedirish.ie. Altogether better.
I'm the Kinsella's kitchen table. We used to have a good working relationship. I'd be included in evening meals, but days were my own. Since they started working from home, I've become Dad's hot desk, Mum's call centre, and the kids' classroom. Today, their youngest didn't just go outside the lines while colouring in, he crossed one, blemishing me permanently with his marker. Mrs. Kinsella called FBD's insurance team. They cover damage to your homewares. After all, support is what FBD do. Accidental damage to contents cover required, which is an optional additional cover. No claims bonus will be affected by claim. Policy excess and policy T's and C's apply. Underwritten by FBD Insurance plc. FBD Insurance Group Limited, trading as FBD Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Let's see. Avocados, bread. What else do we need?
Patrick, have you ever thought about wearing a fireman's uniform?
A what?
You know, yellow helmet, fire retardant jacket, a sprinkling of high-vis.
Why are we talking about this in the vegetable aisle?
How about a teacher? Garda traffic corps?
Sorry?
Deputy planning regulator?
At ICS Mortgages, we've got a mortgage designed specifically for public sector employees. It's a mortgage offer so good, everyone wants in on the action. To find out more, contact your local mortgage broker, call us on 1890 427 427 or visit icsmortgages.ie. Lending criteria, terms and conditions apply. Dillosk DAC, trading as Dillosk and ICS Mortgages, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Ready for your next big move? The trip from the fridge to the couch. Gamble responsibly. Gamblingcare.ie.
It's just gone full time. Chelsea 1-0 winners against Atletico and Bayern 4-1 against Lazio. That's a really good win for Chelsea, Dan.
Yeah, it's a huge win. I suppose, again, closed doors football. I mean, it's a different language around home and away. I mean, but the away goal still counts. It's still in the bank for you. So it's weird, yeah. I mean, it's a great win for him. I suppose he's managed to maintain his early momentum, really, hasn't he, Tuchel? I mean, they've had the odd bad half here and there, but bottom line results are still holding up.
Just before we go, we touched on the streaming situation around the League of Ireland a couple of weeks back, and in short, and talking off the top of my head, the numbers who subscribed last season weren't deemed of as sufficient. Or I think it was 11,000 total, 4,000 season subscribers, and then the rest were picking and choosing games. That wasn't deemed sufficient to justify the cost of doing a full season again. So there was a worry, I suppose, or disappointment that the football wouldn't be streamed. But in a minute or less, if you can, the situation now, it turns out there will be something happening.
Yeah, basically what's happening is that Watch LOI service, it looks like it's going to return until the mid-season break. So it hasn't changed in the sense that RTE are still who are behind the sort of streaming service, Watch LOI, and they were the ones that had concerns about the full cost. They are prepared to cover matches up until the mid-season break. Now, from that point onwards, I think RTE resources will probably channel towards the Euros and the Olympics and stuff like that. But for League of Ireland fans, in the Premier Division level, there's going to be something there until the break. And I'll be quick because I know time is against us. First Division and Women's National League, they're trialling a system. It appears that it's an artificial intelligence thing where there's an unmanned camera that tracks the ball. It's trained to follow the ball. And it's possible that system could be rolled out at Premier level for the rest of the season if it works in the First Division. At the one point, they have it in Scotland in the Scottish Championship. It's worked very well, apart from one game where there was a bald linesman with a very shiny head, and the intelligence got confused and kept flipping to the linesman's head. So people are trying to watch the game, and then all of a sudden the camera would flick to the linesman walking down the sideline. So it just goes to show we aren't all going to be replaced by machines eventually, Joe. But there'll be a flaw in the system somehow.
Yes, maybe baseball caps required or else wigs. But very good. Dan, for the time being, I'll say good night. Thanks a mil.
Night, Joe.
Football on Off the Ball with thanks to Paddy Power. For information on responsible gambling, visit gamblingcare.ie. OTB AM with you tomorrow morning. I'm sure they'll have the latest on the Tiger Woods situation. Hopefully good news on the way over the next few hours. Also with them, Graham Hunter on tonight's football, and AFLW star Aisling McCarthy as well. We're back from 7 as usual. Wednesday night rugby, I'm sure some more news on Tiger and a few other bits and pieces. Richie McCormick in for Tom Dunn this evening. He's on the way.